During the summer break when I was younger, it was quite the good times for me to play football with my friends at the park. We would usually just go during the midday, as the heat wouldn't be as much by those times. Besides, it was a nice feeling when other families and people in general were enjoying outside of the park too. I would usually go with a few of my friends to play there, and sometimes there would be other kids at the park to play with as well. Even if this was the case, it wouldn't feel the same if my friends didn't come, as they were pretty funny when playing around. We didn't take it too seriously and just wanted to have fun. There was a time though when things didn't go to plan and kinda went badly wrong. My friends and me had a ride at the park like we usually did. It was just a great feeling being around there. Summer break away from school. No homework, no going to bed early for school. We were just excited to play and would go over to the usual spot to play on the grass. I started running there first as I wanted to start the game fast, at least before anyone tried going around there and claiming the spot. I mean, I wouldn't mind if they were to play a match with us, but it isn't ideal when people are just standing around the grass, just doing nothing, or relaxing in the middle, especially when it is mostly used to play football. I tried my best to invite more people that might be playing on their own or with their group of friends. A lot of times when we played as a large group with people we don't even know, it would actually be really fun, and I personally would have a great time doing this. I invited this group of people who seemed to be hesitant at the start, but then later agreed after they were talking amongst each other. It didn't seem like they were too interested, but they were invited to play regardless. I did the same thing to another group of people and some individuals who were solo as well. There would be like 14 of us in total, so we just did 7 people on each side. We started playing, and already from the start we could sense quite some aggression from the first group of people I had invited. We referred to them as T1. These guys looked to be the same age as us, but I'm not really sure. Some of them did look quite tall. However, we still continued playing, and when I had the ball, I was controlling it for a few seconds, then all of a sudden, I was pushed to the floor, face to my front, and I felt that someone had pushed me really hard on my shoulders. I was lying down on the floor and tried to see who it was. It was one of the people from the T1 group of friends, and they had the ball now. I let it go for now, but I obviously wasn't too happy, even though we were meant to stop. It was probably around 15 minutes later, and we continued playing. Our side was winning so far, since the strangers that were on our side, they were actually pretty good, and it was like 2 or 3 of them doing a lot of the actual work. Like I said before, me and my friends weren't as serious about playing really good, and we just played for fun mostly. One of the people on my side had the ball, and they were just about to score until someone from T1 grabbed their arm and pulled them to the floor. This was insane, and all of us started running towards them. They tried to continue playing on, but we told them to stop. This caused some arguments between us and the T1 friend group. Even people on their team were against what the T1 friend group had done. It started getting serious when they were insulting us, and one of my friends tried to break up the fight, but the people in T1 tried pushing him away. I was just watching everything from quite a distance and decided to go closer. They were getting angry and questioning us to why we were playing unfair and stopping the game for apparently no reason. It was just back and forth arguments at that point, and it was getting more worse. One of the people from the T1 friend group then grabbed the ball and threw it so far that it went over a fence, which caused a lot more issues. The T1 group started laughing and tried attacking one of the people on my side, which caused a lot of pushing around, eventually grabbing the attention of a few grown men that were standing nearby. They started holding back those that were involved, and the T1 friend group had walked away in anger, screaming to us saying, "If we see you guys again, watch what happens." This was just a crazy situation, and the threat they had directed towards us before leaving was quite disturbing, and I wouldn't take it lightly, especially with how some younger teenagers act nowadays. All of us were either angry or irritated, but we decided to just go home. This turned from a fun afternoon game to a violent outburst by those people. I never saw them again, even after going back there, but for anyone in this situation, always try to de-escalate and don't worsen the situation by engaging back or whatever. The summertime work hours for me were not the best. In terms of constantly struggling in the heat and being a lot more tired to wake up from the humid conditions. I still liked it being sunny though, so that was pretty nice. I had a nighttime shift this one time because someone from my workplace requested for me to cover his shift just for one day. I didn't decline his request as he was a pretty close coworker that I had known from before the time he had changed his shift hours. So I was thinking I could do this one favor to help him out, and it was only like 4 hours anyway. That wouldn't be an issue, I was assuming. Regardless of the situation, I think it's still best to help those who might need it, even if it's just a small request. I got inside my car and it felt strange being out there this late at night and driving around. I didn't normally do this, but that was probably because my shifts were during the daytime. I would just be at home at night times mostly anyway. I was driving the way to my workplace, and it was quite good since there wasn't much traffic on the road. I drove without stopping much, unless it was a red light or stop sign, of course. It took only like 20 minutes to get there, and if you want to compare with my normal time of journey during the daytime, it is probably close to an hour when including the traffic. It might sound pretty bad, but I'm kinda used to leaving my house early to make it on time for work. I parked my car and made my way inside. If you're wondering what I do there, I just do basic tasks with packaging boxes from delivery orders of products for a small company. It sounds pretty relaxing, but when you have to do this repeating action over and over again constantly, it gets quite tiring, especially when the supervisor places tight deadlines for us. My coworker did say there wasn't much to package at those times, since a lot will be done during the daytime. I think that's why he gets paid less when working the night shift. I was just doing my job and I wasn't the only one working at the place. However, in the spot I was located right that moment, I was alone, so it was kinda creepy at the same time, though I was occupied with the packaging the products, so it didn't really get to my mind too much. Around an hour went by and I'd probably done like 1/4 of the packaging required before I could go home. I was still doing the same thing, and the humid feeling that you might experience during the summer nights, yeah, that was getting to me, and it made it a lot more difficult. It is something I had to try brushing off. 5 minutes later, I heard a very loud sound that I could kind of feel the impact of. I jumped a little from hearing this, and I instantly stopped what I was doing. I just turned my head facing towards wherever that sound came from, until another strike had been made around the same area. This time I took some steps back and hid behind some boxes. I then heard some sounds coming from the door nearby to where I was standing before. It sounded like some locks being messed with, and like a minute later, it was opened by some people wearing a black ski mask. I was terrified when seeing this and walked away from that position. I didn't want to stay in that area any more longer, but I also notified one of the security guards that was working there. Then I made my way outside, quickly running towards my car. I was shaking a little and almost dropped my keys in the process. I mean, the door they had just entered from was quite close to where my car was parked, so I was really scared they would come out and hear me. I unlocked the door and got inside my car, starting up the engine and driving away fast. I was looking back a few times to see if anyone was there outside maybe, but I think those intruders were still in there. I managed to make it back home though, without much problems. To let you guys know what had happened a few days later after that, those guys who made their way inside of there, they got arrested and the place had to be closed down for a few days, since they were trying to solve the situation with the police and obtaining the necessary evidence. That meant I had a few days off of work then. My coworker did call me to ask if I was okay, and I let him know I was fine. I'm just glad no one was seriously hurt that day. They were probably only looking to rob the place, I think, but I'm not sure. Pay attention if you're ever faced in these situations, and try your best to notify someone who can help, and call the police when necessary. It's really important to try remembering this, especially with how some people might be armed with weapons. Summer is an awesome time to be able to go outside and do so many outdoor activities, which I myself tried doing. I would try some stuff out like hiking and camping in the woods with other people. However, I had recently seen a lot of those solo survival type of videos on YouTube, which kinda made me interested in doing the same sort of stuff. I would see those guys just starting a fire with very basic material and cooking on rocks or something. It looked pretty cool to me, and I guess it was something I decided to plan to do one time. The next day, I placed some items in my bag to take with me, such as my phone, sunglasses, bushcraft knife, and some food, with a large juice box with me. At the time when I was packing everything in the bag, I was thinking this would be enough, which was probably my first mistake, since I'd assumed I could mostly rely on what I would do when I got to the woods. I wasn't thinking properly about the consequences or issues that I might face when being there at that moment. I picked up my bag and placed it on my back. I was feeling very confident and excited at the same time, since those videos probably gave me a false sense of dopamine and motivation to go ahead with it. I was walking towards the woods area, and this one was at least close to my place. I did mention before that I had previously done some hiking and camping, but that was a lot more different, since I was now alone without any human support, along with very little resources I had taken with me. My mind was still not processing this at that point, so I was probably thinking I had experienced beforehand, which in reality I don't think I did. I continued my journey to the woods and finally made it there. Another thing to mention would be that I didn't even take a tent with me, or anything that would provide me some sort of shelter. At least some basic shelter would have been ideal. I put down my bag and tried remembering some stuff from those videos I'd watched, like collecting wooden sticks of different sizes, breaking off branches that had large leaves attached to it for shelter, and many other stuff. It was going great during the collecting process of things, though when I was done with collecting what I thought was necessary, making use of these materials would be my first obstacle, since I didn't really have the structured knowledge or skills to work with this stuff. I was trying to form the branches to make some sort of shelter, but it kept falling apart when I did this. Starting a fire wasn't easy as well, since I didn't know how to start one in the woods, using the resources there. Looking back now, I don't think it's that simple anyway. I was getting frustrated, and I spent hours trying to figure out what to do. I guess a stubborn mindset just kept me going, even though I was unsuccessful each time, and it got to the point when nighttime was coming soon. After some time with the shelter situation, I did manage to form some structure that was average enough for me to be satisfied in this stressed out position. I couldn't start a fire though, even when trying, and gave up on doing that, eventually just lying down in this poorly built structure and intending to try resting a little. Even when I tried, I couldn't get to sleep, and I could hear animals and insects around constantly, which was scaring me a lot in the dark, and I didn't even eat or drink anything from my supply, since I was so focused in trying to get stuff working. I was so filled with stress that I wasn't paying attention to that. It felt like time was going very slowly as I waited for the nighttime to pass. By the end of that night, I don't think I managed to get any sleep, which annoyed me a lot. It was exhausting, but I was more mentally drained out, to be honest. The sunlight had come out, and I just grabbed my bag, walking very slowly back to my place and leaving the woods. It was both an unsettling and frustrating feeling. The emotions going through my mind was crazy. I realized what mess I'd gotten myself into and learned my lesson, I guess. It should also go out to all those people who might think the same like me. The videos might make it look easy, but it's not the case a lot of times, and it could lead to dangerous mistakes when having this false sense of motivation. We had guests over at my place, and my parents were making food in the house. Since it was obviously summertime, it would be very hot inside of there, and combined with the cooking and the amount of people, it was no surprise that the humid feeling was quite intense. So I decided I would just go take a walk outside to try cool off and get some fresh air. It was nighttime, by the way, so I would be able to relax for some time outside with the nice breeze of the nighttime hours. I left my house and I was walking on the sidewalk around my neighborhood. I felt safe around there and didn't really have any bad experiences. Maybe the occasional complaints by neighbors for minor issues, but nothing of large scale. I was looking around while walking, and it was very peaceful being out there. I never usually go outside at night like that, and especially in the winter times, I wouldn't do that since it would be way too cold. However, the summer nights were just amazing. Nice temperature, and it's not as humid when outside. I was initially thinking of just being out there for like 5 minutes or something, but I figured I could stay a little more longer. It was very comfortable, and I didn't want to go back inside the humid house so soon. I had my phone with me and I started texting my cousins. One of them was actually inside my house, and I let him know I was outside. I was thinking it would have been nice if I let him know about it in person, so we both could have walked around and had conversations, but I didn't feel like going back home and then back outside again. I continued texting on my phone, and I was still standing by on the sidewalk, nearby to a road where some cars would be going by. It was still relaxing, as there wouldn't be as much cars driving by anyway, but after a few minutes later, I heard someone screaming very loudly, and this made me look towards the direction of where it came from almost immediately. I saw 2 people trying to grab this guy's bag from his back, and it looked like they were robbing him. I didn't see anything too crazy about his bag that would be appealing or valuable, but I think he was just a target of a couple robbers that had chosen to rob him specifically, I guess. I didn't know what to do, and I felt like I needed to do something about it. I could still see him struggling, so I ended up raising my voice to grab their attention. I really don't know what I was thinking when doing that. It was like an impulse reaction when that came out, which was definitely not good since those guys looked directly at me and started running towards me. There was quite some distance away from me and the 2 robbers, so with the adrenaline pumping within my body, I was sprinting away from that position and tried making my way back home. I kept running and running until I made it back home. I was out of breath by the end of it, and I could barely even walk properly. Once I was able to think properly again, I realized they could have easily followed me back home, and instantly felt a deep sense of regret. I was inside my house and ran up to my room, looking at the window constantly to try to see if they were there. Thankfully they weren't, and I think the paranoia was getting to me. The good thing was, no one noticed me being in the state of fear. The guests in my house were occupied with whatever stuff they were doing, so that was good for me. I wasn't trying to get interrogated on why I looked so scared and tired. For a few days, I felt very paranoid to leave my house. It was a weekend anyway, so I didn't really have to go outside for like 2 days anyway. I am glad I was able to get away from those people, and I really hope that person who was getting robbed before got away too. It makes me realize that the night times can be very unsafe, even if you live in a potentially safe neighborhood. There are certain people who will cause danger like this, and it only takes one person to do so be very mindful about that.